Hello, my friends. Good to have you back. If this is your first time here, welcome. I make sarcastic, sometimes funny, and always pedantic responses to idiots who think Wicca is some secret satanic cult that abuses people and sacrifices them to their dark lord. Like today's video, Wicca Exposed, by a channel named Edenvs John? Edenvs John? Edenvs John. This channel is run by a professional victim who claimed to expose his secret societies. Weird how all these so-called secret societies are very well known and most can be found online with a simple Google search. Who runs the channel? His name is John Harwood, a human rights activist, writer, and documentary filmmaker. He even claims to have made intelligence reports warning people of the dangers of secret societies. He's even been placed on a patriotic watch list. Not sure if that was for his own protection or because he is so dangerous to the powers that be. What methods does he use to expose these secret societies trying to take over America, you may ask? Through a method called styling, or locating occult areas to investigate. Styling just means investigating homeless encampments. I don't know how serious we should take his book, as he refers to it as a hilarious novel about gangs of kids living in America during the 1990s. Is it a joke book about street gangs in the 1990s and not secret societies? Let's listen in on this occult investigator exposing the dark secrets of Wicca. Sit back and pour yourself a glass of wine as we learn the true dark history Wicca Exposed. I hope you enjoy.
Gee, mate, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
It's basically an intergalactic invasion into this space through people. I'm telling you, it's what all the ancients said, it's what they warned of, it's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I don't think they're actually being physically taken into a physical craft.
Okay.
It's the demons taking control of them where they begin to think that this is what's happening.
The idea of a holographic universe, all of a sudden things begin to make sense because these entities who come in and manipulate space, time, matter, and energy can do so because they don't come from...
lycanthrope or a werewolf, or I can go the other way and become a vampire. I chose to become a vampire because it seemed, sexier somehow. And so anyhow, I went through about a year and a half where basically I lived on nothing but human blood and Catholic community.
And it's real. It's not a put on. This is 100% real. The energy level is just rising to an absolute cacophony.
Today I'm going to expose Wicca, which is the real name for the religion of witchcraft.
I don't think you can say that Wicca, pronounced Witcha, is the real name of witchcraft. Witcha is Old English for a male witch. Witchy was a female witch. Witchen was multiple male witches, and Witchen was multiple female witches. In Middle English, the term witcha added the CH sound, and the term became used for both genders, men and women. The term Wicca means witch today. Modern-day parlance associates Wicca with practitioners of traditions based off Gardner's form of witchcraft, such as Alexandrian and many others. The term witch is used by those who practice what they term as folkloric or traditional witchcraft. They just use the term witch and witchcraft and not Wicca. Wicca is witchcraft, but not all witches are Wiccan.
Now, witches don't tell people that they practice witchcraft. They don't go around saying that they are witches. Witches will tell you that they are Wiccans, and their religion is called Wicca.
Have you heard about social media? Nearly everyone who identifies as a witch tell people they are witches and or practice witchcraft. I do know several people who do not make it part of their identity and keep that aspect of their beliefs private. They don't do that for nefarious reasons, but rather as to not be harassed by hateful bigots such as yourself. With the growth of Christian nationalism in America today, I really do not blame some people for keeping that private. On a side note, one of the biggest Christian nationalist movements in America is the Ku Klux Klan. Wicca is a religion for many. Not all witches use the term Wicca. Witches may practice witchcraft and follow another religion, or they may not be religious at all. For myself, I identify as a Gardnerian pagan witch who also studies the Western occult tradition. I have my own practice which incorporates modern witchcraft, neo-paganism, and the Western occult tradition.
And if you look up Wicca on the internet, you'll probably find explanations for it as a nature-based religion based on Western European pagan rituals.
That is simple enough. I think it is safe to say that most witches identify as witchin, celebrate the wheel of the year, and enjoy the natural world. Although worship nature, maybe I would say for myself it is more of a reverence for our natural world, void of cement, steel, and smog.
So first, let's take a look at the word witch. And the definition of that is a person thought to have evil magical powers.
Evil magical powers? No, that is a more Christian view. Old English Wicca meant a sorcerer or wizard. Those that were believed to possess supernatural or magical powers were not always thought of as evil. That is a more modern interpretation and was heavily influenced by King James and his delusional paranoia.
According to the dictionary, the origin of the word witch goes back to the Old English word Wicca.
This guy has so much disdain for Wicca that you can hear it in his voice. I bet some Wicca dude at his high school stole his girlfriend. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Which was the original name for a witch. And the only other words I've found that are similar to the word Wicca are the words wicked,
Wicked! Wicked! Wicked!
wicker, and wick. So that is a pretty interesting collection of words there.
The word Wicca and wicker may be related to Wicca. I'm not sure how you got wick as in a candle wick, as that word is not derived from Wicca, at least not that I could find. The reason he needs the term wick to be associated with a witch is so he can claim witches absorb demonic energy, just as a candle wick absorbs oil. The mental gymnastics these bigots perform is truly astonishing.
And witches are basically very evil people who absorb demons into them.
Hey, you take that back. I will not stand here and let you insult the great name of Wicca with your lies and propaganda. Witches may be very evil people who absorb demons into themselves, but we are not candle wicks. That's just hurtful. According to many of you, demons are everywhere, possessing people all the time, even Christians. So we are nobody special in that sense. Demon possession is just another Tuesday for you.
In modern times, Wiccans have tried to confuse the word Wicca and tell you that it's a modern, harmless form of witchcraft. And they'll say that they trace this word back to a guy named Gerald Gardner, who was born in the late 1800s and is considered something like the grandfather of Wicca.
Many people, myself included, believe Gerald Gardner's form of witchcraft that has become known as Wicca is a modern practice. It is based off the Western occult tradition and incorporates older folk customs and traditions. I have done my own analysis of Gardner's books of shadows, and there is definitely material in them that he either made up or he received from an unknown source, and I haven't found its origin yet. I know that is anecdotal, and I am far from an academic on this topic. Gerald Gardner was born June 13th, 1884, and he is considered the father of modern Wicca.
But the truth is that Gerald Gardner is just another frontman for witchcraft.
Just another frontman for Wicca? The language you use and your tone is so over the top.
So Gerald Gardner was from England, and he was born in the late 1800s. He lived most of his life abroad.
He lived most of his life abroad. I don't know where you got that from.
Not abroad. Abroad.
Huh? What?
Not abroad.
1 minute.
Abroad.
Oh, you meant abroad. Right. Carry on.
But when he returned to England, his interest in the occult landed him in a Rosicrucian theater. So for those of you who don't know, the Rosicrucians are a secret society like the Freemasons.
Neither the Rosicrucians nor the Freemasons are a secret society. Both of them have a well-established footprint. They have websites, Facebook groups, and local chapters can easily be found around the world. For secret societies, they sure are doing a pretty lousy job of keeping themselves secret.
And at this Rosicrucian theater, of course, there was this inner group of Rosicrucians that approached Gerald Gardner and told him that they were actually witches and that they practiced Wicca, and informed Gardner that Wicca is the real name for those who practice witchcraft. So according to the story, they initiated Gardner into their secret society of Wiccans.
Not exactly. Gardner was interested in the Crotona Fellowship and made friends with a smaller inner circle who he claimed to be part of the New Forest Coven that he eventually would be initiated into and hear the word Wicca used.
And later, Gardner wanted to write a book about Wicca, but the head priestess of the coven told him no. But then eventually, after moving up the ranks and then starting a coven of his own, he was eventually allowed to write a book on Wicca called Witchcraft Today.
It was not because he moved up the ranks that he wrote Witchcraft Today. The story goes that those who initiated him were not interested in going public and having their activities known. So Gardner wrote Witchcraft Today from the perspective of his own tradition, claiming it was the survival of an ancient pre-Christian witch cult. On a side note, if Gardner would not have ever gone public as a witch, the Wicca, witchcraft, and neo-paganism movements may not have ever happened.
And in this book, Gardner used the word Wicca instead of witchcraft. So everybody thought that it was something new. And even the title of his book, Witchcraft Today, suggests something new, liberal, and whitewashed.
No, there was no nefarious reason for calling it Wicca. Gardner was not trying to create something new, liberal, and whitewashed. Quite to the contrary, he was using a term he claimed to have heard during his initiation, and this term is interchanged with witch throughout all of his writings. When he writes of the history, he tends to use the term Wicca. When he writes in general, he uses the term witchcraft.
When in fact, Wicca was the archaic and original name for witchcraft, and for those who absorb demonic energy for power.
Gardner describes nothing about absorbing anything, let alone the Greek mistranslation of daimon into Latin. The bulk of Gardner's writings center mostly around initiations in the 4 quarter celebrations of Samhain, Candlemas, or Imbolc, Beltane, and Lughnasadh. Later, the solstices and equinoxes were added, but absolutely nothing about absorbing Greek daimons. This projection is based off your Christian mythology.
So there's nothing new about it. So realistically, my guess is that Gardner was eventually given permission by the ruling establishment in England.
Given permission by the ruling establishment? You think King George VI rubber-stamped Gardner's draft of Witchcraft Today? What are you, an idiot?
To write the book Witchcraft Today.
Gardner wrote Witchcraft Today from his perspective as an outsider. Supposedly members of his coven were not pleased with the notoriety.
So that he could popularize witchcraft or bring it more out into the open.
It sparked a further revival and interest in pre-Christian religions, but this was at the tail end of the so-called Celtic revival in the middle of the 1800s, along with the interest in the Western occult tradition. Organizations such as the Ancient Order of Druids, 1781, and interest in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, 1888, grew and attracted prominent followers.
And they would want to do this first, to whitewash witchcraft, so more people will accept it and basically ignore it as just another stupid New Age religion.
Gardner's interest in European witchcraft was influenced by the cultural zeitgeist of the time, and after the publication of The Witch Cult in Western Europe by Margaret Murray, the iron was hot and ready for striking. The supposed New Age fad started in the early 1970s.
And 2, they did this to gain more followers and to get more people involved in their religion.
Oh no, call the police. Gardner was promoting a religious idea separate from Christianity. This interest in all things esoteric and ancient was already growing in the collective mind of a society that was coming to grips with the Industrial Revolution of the early 18th century and the growth of what many perceived as a disinterest and neglect of our natural world.
Because the next step was for Wiccans to invade America.
For Wiccans to invade America? I can just see them now, hundreds of black pointy hats rising out of huge cauldrons as they paddle their way across the Atlantic Ocean. Instead, they just sent one guy, Raymond Buckland. Not much of an invasion.
So this happened in the 1960s, and in the 1960s, everybody knows what was happening here in the States. You had the Vietnam War. You had all the hippies protesting the Vietnam War and speaking out about all the corruption in government. You had the music changing, all the styles changing, the attitude and lifestyle is changing, people becoming more modern and open-minded.
I don't know if I would call the movement of the 60s modern. Definitely the end of World War II and all of its atrocities coming to light and the development of the atomic bomb might have had a little influence on culture.
And parallel to all of this, you had several Wiccan occult groups who, quote, jumped the pond from England to America.
I thought they invaded America. Make up your mind. America had an exchange of art, literature, and culture with Europe, England, Ireland, Scotland, and still does even to today. That is nothing new. However, I am sure the telephone, radio, and television may have made the exchange of ideas that much easier. But I'm guessing you're trying to imply something more sinister at work.
So these Wiccan occult groups,
Wiccan and occult,
used all the change that was happening in the 60s to camouflage what they truly were. And all the hippies were drawn to the Wiccans because they had tarot cards, they had Ouija boards, they were into astrology, they had drugs. And of course, some of the books that the Wiccans carried with them were written by Gerald Gardner.
America already had Ouija board and astrology in our culture. Ouija boards gained popularity from the interest in spiritualism of the 1840s. Astrology goes way back in history and has always been around in one form or another. Drugs? The witches did not bring drugs into America. Many covens back then, as they do to today, forbid drugs or those under the influence of drugs in circle. Use of illegal drugs should be left to the individual on their own time. There is no need to endanger the health and safety of those in a coven setting. The last thing you want is some idiot swinging around anathema and lighting candles while under the influences. I like how you want to heap all of society's ills onto the shoulders of those who follow alternative religions.
So with all the free thought and rebellion happening in America, the establishment's response was to hijack and redirect control of all that freedom and rebellion by sending in their English occult groups.
King George VI spent years slowly mind-controlling Gerald Gardner into getting interested in Malay weapons and the superstitious beliefs of other cultures. And when the time was right, Margaret Murray, who was no doubt part of a CIA MK Ultra mind control group, would nonchalantly publish her book on her theory of the survival of a witch cult in Europe, which, in turn, led Gardner to publish his book Witchcraft Today. Such a clever plan. Amazing how you meticulously unraveled it all.
And all of these Wiccan occult groups had ties to the English military, the U.S. military, the Office of Naval Intelligence, and of course the Vatican.
The Vatican, of course, because we all know how welcoming and accepting the Catholic faith is of heretics allegedly in league with the devil. This guy is nuttier than a fruitcake.
Because Wicca is the secret religion of the ruling establishment.
Actually, no, it is not. The religion of the ruling establishment is Christianity. Christianity wants to be the one world religion of the one world government. Everything you project onto Wicca is exactly what Christianity is striving for. Christianity wants to control science, control education, influence government policy, and control society as a whole. Stop projecting your desire for world domination onto us. We don't want to run the world. That would be way too much work.
So in an attempt to gain more followers and support of their religion, Wiccans will tell you in their whitewashed books that they worship all types of gods and goddesses.
It is so annoying to hear Wiccans on a corner shouting through a megaphone about how we need to repent and follow the Lord and Lady. Oh, wait, that's not Wicca. That is Christianity shouting at us that we need to follow Jesus. Tell us again how Wiccans are trying to gain more followers and support their religion, because compared to Christianity, we are doing a pretty piss-poor job of it. So I guess Wicca is a super secret religion of British royalty British military, the American military, and the Vatican. Who knew that our old friend Gerald Gardner was so incredibly influential? Next time I want to enter the Vatican, I just flash them my Wicca membership card and I'll gain full access to the Vatican archives. That will be exciting. Until next time, my friends, I will see you in hell, you heathens.